When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rewind to Raw. I'm John Pollock. He is Wai Ting. And you are here to listen to us talk about Raw, numbers, and tournaments in Japan. Hello, Wai.
Hey, John. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I woke up today. I was excited to do multiple shows today, and this is number 2.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yep. But that's... No, we'll see. Maybe it'll be a constant thing. We shall see.
How was your afternoon?
It was fine, yeah. I took a much needed nap before Raw, and then I even had a coffee during Raw, so I'm good to go.
That can be dangerous. The nighttime coffee.
Nighttime coffee. I'm crazy. What can you say, man? It's a big evening.
It is. We have a lot of stuff to dive into, and off the top, want to make mention of what is coming up this week. It's another busy week in the world of pro wrestling, and we have you covered. There is no Rewind to Dynamite on Wednesday, but Wednesday we have the B Block final. So if you are a Post Wrestling Cafe member, you will be getting a special bonus show on Wednesday, where I'm sure we'll do a lot of catching up on news items that are coming out over the next day or so. So you can look out for that. Thursday, a super show. On Thursday night, we will recap the G1 finals and Crown Jewel, which are airing almost back-to-back on Thursday morning/afternoon. So your day can start at 5 in the morning, and you can just go. You can go until 3 o'clock in the afternoon with professional wrestling. So we will have a show Thursday night, usual, Rewind to SmackDown Friday night, and then Rewind to Dynamite will drop on Sunday this weekend as we chronicle another Saturday night Dynamite, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with this little Saturday night detour for Dynamite.
As am I, yeah. For those of you who weren't aware, we did record a Dynamite review last night, so that's on the free feed if you just scroll below. Also, over this past weekend, we released the latest edition of W.H. Park's Long and Winding Royal Road. This was a quarterly biography series on one of the 4 pillars, the final of the 4 pillars in Akira Taue, which WH did with Dave Musgrave. So encourage everybody to check that out.
Yes, always great shows. Covering the various pillars. So Akira Taue, the latest on the docket for the two of them. Also, this weekend, want to make mention that on Sunday, not only will we be releasing Rewind to Dynamite, but Davey Portman will be doing the Bound for Glory post show alongside John Cena. That will be out early Sunday. It's going to be a late Bound for Glory because they are starting the pay-per-view at 10 o'clock Eastern that night to avoid running head-to-head with Dynamite. So Saturday night, you can get 5 hours. Hell, you could get 8 hours if you want to watch Nick Gage and Minoru Suzuki. You can just pile it all on. New Japan Strong, Ring of Honor this weekend. Just watch everything.
Somebody might, sure.
So all of those can be found, postwrestling.com. Check it all out. The G1 is coming to a close, and the contest is getting intense. The C Block winner will be crowned this coming week.
Yeah, I mean, coming up into this B Block final, I mean, it really is just coming down to Okada and Jeff Cobb, but all the other matches on the show are basically just happening so that we can determine a winner of the G1 contest on postwrestling.com/G1, and it's still a race that I would say is heating up. So I look forward to seeing those results.
Yes, Ghetto can still screw with our tournament, so we have another series of tournament matches still to go on Wednesday. But now it's time to get into the most civil discourse online. That is pro wrestling viewership when 2 competing programs are airing at the same time. And we have the numbers from Friday. This a series of reporting today from, we have the Showbuzz Daily charts. We have Brandon Thurston, as always, The Torch, and Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter providing all angles of this Friday night war. So I want to refrain from just reciting like a million numbers here that no one is going to process. So we'll kind of go through these. So SmackDown for the 2.5 hour block did 866,000 viewers, 314,000 in 18 to 49, which would be a 0.24. Rampage from 10 till 11 did 578,000 viewers. So number one, SmackDown and overall viewers way more than Rampage, which we assumed overall viewership would be significantly in WWE's favor, and it was. 18 to 49, a 0.24, the exact same rating WWE posted for SmackDown, and it was broken down that SmackDown did 314,000, Rampage 313,000. Now, before we get into the 30-minute block way, just that overall total, how surprised were you that the 18 to 49 number was as close as it turned out being?
I don't know if I was necessarily surprised. I think going into this weekend, that was going to be the tightest race. I think there might have been a chance, their viewerships would have, I suppose, matched, but I personally felt like it was going to be 1849 that was going to be the most competitive, and the fact that they were dead even practically is there's a lot of information I think you can take from it. I think we all maybe had our suspicions, but now actually seeing in practice, you have to look at this entire experiment and ask yourself, if you're the WWE, was this a battle worth fighting? I don't know.
The analogy to me of Friday night was this was Rocky 1, where the champion leaves with his title, but he was taken to the absolute limit by the challenger that I think they assumed was going to be greatly outmatched in WWE, throwing all of this at them with a big SmackDown. And as we said, like, if you want to just take this as a one-off, like, looking at like a scoreboard, the larger picture here was that AEW was not only competitive. We're going to get into the 30-minute head-to-head battle, which is very favorable to AEW. But in the overall 2.5 hours versus 60 minutes of AEW, they won in males 18 to 49 and adults 18 to 34. This to me is... I'm not going to overstate what Friday is, because I think that's the danger everyone's going to make of this number. But this was, here is the competitor that is right on the heels of WWE and beat them in several key categories. And in the head-to-head, won. Yeah, in the head-to-head, yeah. Man, today was very exciting, I would say, when these numbers came out. There was certainly an air of excitement we hadn't really felt since maybe some of the first weeks of that Wednesday Night War. But you can argue perhaps the stakes were even bigger this time around because it was WWE's A show. The circumstances are very different, though, of course. It's not, on Fox. It's moving for 1 week only, or at least a couple weeks only, on a station that is slightly less, in fewer homes. But there was an air of excitement, certainly. And I think with that same air of excitement came a lot of just, oh man, I can't help it, John. I'm a fiend for these like comments. I do my best to try to stay away from Twitter, but like the moment I get in, I love reading these comments, and they're all just like, what was the general sentiment? Ugh. Like I totally stay away from it. I don't engage in any of it.
I mean, it's just exactly the type of tribalism you would expect, like if you're for one team, you're arguing that, you're arguing, well, look how much WWE won in overall viewers, why don't older people matter? And if you're an AEW supporter, I think you point out, where they win accordingly. And, ultimately it comes down to what the advertisers care about and what the networks care about. And from my understanding, at least, it is the 18 to 49 number that is most important. But
it's what everything is ranked at. Like when we say SmackDown is number one on a Friday night, we are not going by overall viewership. If we gauged SmackDown by overall viewership among the big four networks every Friday night, they are at the bottom, if not second lowest, most Fridays. But instead, they rank usually number one, give or take whatever Shark Tank does on ABC. And typically, SmackDown is number one because we are going by that 18 to 49 number, which is exactly how these shows are measured.
Yeah. But this tribalism was actively.
It's silly. Like, you can't get involved in this stuff, and that's fans being fans. Like, that comes with the territory.
It's part of the fandom, and in this case, it was actively encouraged by Tony Khan via Twitter. I mean, you can argue, yes, WWE making the move in the first place, extending their show by a 30-minute commercial-free block was one of the first shots, but Tony Khan actively participating in encouraging and trash talking, that I think obviously did a lot to fan the flames, which perhaps was.
Did that help them? Did that help them? Like, you have to look at it at both sides too. Like, it invites all of that kind of ugliness, but at the same time, like, as Tony Khan has kind of like pretty much stated outright, it's that there's an audience that wants this, and this is going to raise the awareness level, even if it's a toxic level of it. Like, that is going to fan the flames of what a lot of this audience wants, is these two being cutthroat with one another.
And at the end of that, I mean, the entity that benefits from it is going to be AEW. Simply being in the conversation of being an active
the rising
competitor.
Underdog is going to, like, that's a very galvanizing story for people that they can rally behind.
And when it's time to renegotiate those TV deals, that is the end game, everybody. Like, that's what we're working towards. And you can argue, yeah, maybe Tony knows exactly what he's doing by trying to fan these flames to get people talking about these two brands in the same conversation. So by the time when it's time to renew AEW's deal, they are going to get a competitive, similar rate to what WWE will likely get. So
that's the game. That's everything is towards that next deal that will be in hopes for AEW to have some transformative deal for this company, that it's not so much like, it's not to AEW's benefit that at the end of this, WWE is perceived as being undervalued. It's the idea that AEW is that WWE is overvalued at what they're being paid, rather than AEW being undervalued now. The hope is for the best thing for the industry is AEW gets something in the ballpark of WWE, and you have two companies that are making money hand over fist. If the television industry's conclusion is, well, look what AEW is doing at $175 million over 4 years, the end result is WWE should be making a lot less. And that would be counter to every major sports rights fees that have come up. Like, the balloon is not bursting. I think WWE is going to get a sizable increase, and I think AEW is on pace. We cannot predict 3 years from now, but AEW is on pace to get something significant in above what they are at now.
I mean, the more important metric is how WWE does in comparison to other competition, not pro wrestling, and they do very well. And AEW currently is doing very well too. So I mean, it'll probably be a substantial increase for AEW, and I don't think a decrease at all for WWE. So ultimately, pro wrestling wins. Do you have any further breakdown or insight into the breakdown of these numbers, John?
Yeah, there's a few things here. So afterwards, we got the breakdown of like the actual 30-minute head-to-head portion where SmackDown was commercial-free, and Rampage, you remember, started off with the commercial-free match with CM Punk and Matt Sydal. So during that 30-minute window, SmackDown did 878,000 viewers and 285,000 in 18 to 49. Rampage doing 602,000 viewers, again, way less in overall viewers, but 328,000 in 18 to 49. So a sizable topping of them in 18 to 49. And like the Punk Sydal match, it did really well for AEW. And then you saw it go down. And a portion of that is that second quarter featured, like, you had to make up for a lot of that commercial inventory that you got rid of in the first quarter and had to make up in the second. But that was where the drop comes in the second hour, or in the second quarter. And the peak for SmackDown in both viewership and 18 to 49 was their fourth segment. So it was in the first hour, which was the segment that featured the DeVille and Baszler versus Naomi match, a Hit Row video, and Seth Rollins coming out, and a Sasha Banks promo. And that's right when the first hour ended. And then you had the 9 to 10 hour.
Do you have any opinion on what AEW's YouTube buy-in show might have, if at all, contributed to?
I mean, you look at you look at that where they hit, they were up to like 943,000 viewers at the end of the first hour. The buy-in starts and it goes down. But just looking at those live numbers, and again, I'm not an expert on YouTube's calculations and such. I just can't see how the buy-in made a gap. Like SmackDown fell like 8% in viewers when the buy-in began. And I just can't look at the buy-in with those numbers that they were doing, making that big of a dent in SmackDown.
We also, of course, had sports competition.
That's right. We also had the Major League Baseball game, and college football was going on at the same time. So this was hardly a competition-free night for either side. And I would say for SmackDown, they've run on FS1 3 times. The last one was in December, and that one was over 1 million that they did on FS1. But a year ago, comparing it to Major League Baseball, it was pretty damn close to what they did a year ago when they moved to FS1 without having to go against another wrestling product. So it was a fairly even comparison year to year going against Major League Baseball in the month of October.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, to me, like, the big story, in my opinion, coming out of this is the fact that this was a 30-minute commercial-free block of WWE A-list programming with their biggest stars. And, CM Punk on Rampage, I think, is a pretty big deal. And that largely went uninterrupted for 20 minutes. But it was an otherwise pretty standard edition of Rampage. And they matched.
They certainly can't say that they threw all this stuff. Like, they kept their card that they had booked. They did add the buy-in stuff, but again, I don't know how much the buy-in really made a big difference on Friday night, other than your existing audience got a kick-ass match to set up Rampage. But I would say, like, this was, I think everyone is going to now shift its focus to October 29th when SmackDown is back on FS1 with the World Series on Fox. And currently, they have Talking Smack listed in the FS1 slot from 10 to 11. Now,
1 hour instead of
for 1 hour.
hour.
Yeah. Yeah. 1 hour of Talking Smack. So, I mean, in theory, they can do whatever they want if they have that slot. If I'm looking at these numbers, I mean, do you see WWE at all toying with this again in 2 weeks' time?
That's a great question. I think a good question is whether or not they decided to do this half-hour head-to-head. What would we be talking about today? We would still be making comparisons between, what SmackDown does on FS1 versus what Rampage does on TNT, even if they weren't going head-to-head. The fact that they did go head-to-head in AEW 1, at least in the demo, pretty handily, just kind of creates an extra talking point. But if they don't go head-to-head, then we will actually have, just a comparison between SmackDown on FS1 versus Rampage on TNT. And either way, if results are similar, I think it can potentially be as big of a similar talking point as we are having right now between the two. And I just don't know if there's a way for like WWE to fight that battle. I think people are going to watch Rampage regardless. And people who watch SmackDown are going to watch SmackDown. They threw their biggest shots on this past Friday, and a half-hour commercial free with Roman Reigns, Brock, and Sasha and Becky. I just don't really know what type of different result they would expect if they did it again.
Yeah, and a big part of this is also like the perception that you are inviting. Like, for any entertainment television reporters that really dig into these numbers, there's a fantastic story to be told from these numbers on Friday night, and it only follows upon what we have seen. Variety just had that piece as well. Like, the story that is out there in the mainstream television world is that there is a new competitor on the block that is coming very close to WWE's top programming. And this, to me, only encourages that kind of a story. And when you're talking about the larger perception issue, that's what AEW is fighting towards. When Nick Khan was being asked about the potential of, rights fees and such, his theory after the pandemic was that the top leagues, the ones that have that existing base, they're going to do fine. It's the middle class that are going to get hurt. And if his prognostication is going to be accurate, your goal is to keep AEW as far away from becoming anything close to the brand name in professional wrestling, that it's seen as any kind of close neighbor to WWE. And in the grand scheme of things, they are in completely different worlds when it comes to financially. But in the television world, where they live and die by these numbers every week, it's becoming a very competitive race. And I think this is extra bullets in the ammunition of AEW when they are going into meetings, when they are going into speak to advertisers, and they can put this data from Friday. I think it reflects very favorably on what they can do competitively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, their competition is also in their talent pool that they can pull from as well. And in particular, of course, the 18 to 49 demo, and in particular males who are growing increasingly tired of this product that are finding a migrating home in AEW. Do you have any comment on perhaps some of the other demographics that WWE seems to be doing well in?
So from Friday, just looking at this, so we went over like 18 to 49, where SmackDown edged them out by 1,000 viewers. Women 18 to 49, and this is for the entirety of both shows. Women 18 to 49, SmackDown won. Men 18 to 49, that was won by Rampage. Adults 18 to 34, this was really interesting. Rampage beat them by 10,000 viewers. In men 18 to 34, it was dead even at 71,000 viewers. And these are all from Brandon Thurston, who tabulates these demos every single week.
And some beautiful
for his patrons. It's an essential tool for anyone doing this kind of work. But yeah, dead heat between men 18 to 34. In women 18 to 34, Rampage actually beat SmackDown. And it's not often that we look at the female comparisons and see it in AEW's favor. Adults 18 to 34, that was a WWE win, although men was with AEW, women with SmackDown on Friday. So that's kind of some of the big breakdowns there. But it was a better performance on the female side than typical for AEW. Like they saw big increases this week, which is semi-misleading because they're also coming off their all-time low for Rampage last week. So it was a large increase over a kind of bottoming out number last week. But I would say like they overperformed what I expected, because it was a cold week that they were coming off of, and SmackDown had been loaded up. So I would say that they definitely performed higher than I anticipated going in. I did not think it was going to be as close, and AEW outright winning some of these categories.
Did you have any thoughts on this potentially scandalous story about these fast nationals?
I mean, it's been discussed. Like I've heard from people privately like about this and such, that for several weeks now the fast nationals have been coming out, and this past weekend the fast nationals came out and it was just the overall viewership and did not include 18 to 49.
And so just to catch some of our audience up, I mean, the Fast Nationals are almost like they're like the overnight ratings.
It's kind of taking like your top, metered markets, and then you're kind of extrapolating before the final numbers are out. It's monitoring certain areas of areas before everything is tabulated.
Like almost a preview of the official
exactly.
numbers.
It's on election night when 60% of ridings have reported.
Projections.
And exactly. It's a projection. I have like a rule that I don't go with the fast nationals. I just wait till the final number. I just don't see this exercise of putting out a story and then you're putting updated numbers in several days later. That's just mine. That's my kind of rule of thumb with that. But this weekend, like, you just saw the overall viewership come out, and I think you can see what is at play here. Like, that reads very well to WWE. And when we talked about this on Sunday, it was like, we don't know the 18 to 49 numbers, which is, I think, going to be the greatest numbers that weight is placed upon. And we don't know as well, like, how the 30 minutes performed against each other. We have a much clearer view today than just going over like overall viewership comparisons. That does not tell the story of Friday night.
No. And again, what is most important to the broadcaster and to the advertisers. But yeah, so I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom. So the insinuation that seems to be going around is that somebody out there would be leaking these fast national numbers, and for some reason this week specifically omitting the Prime demo in these leaks. And there people have their suspicions of who is doing this potential leaking, but I don't know if it's something we'll ever get to the bottom of. But it is an interesting wrinkle in this story.
Which, I mean, you can look at that, but it's like from the perspective of a reporter, it's like your job is not to figure out the motivation behind why someone is giving you information. Your job is to verify that what you are reporting is accurate. There may be, of course, there's going to be times that sources come to you and they have a motivation for why a story is going to get out. It is your job to just verify that. You cannot control how the message is received, just that the message is accurate. So as long as the Fast Nationals are accurate, it is fair game. Yeah. And it's like you can't you can't be playing judge on what the motivation is to put these out. But at the same time, like you can see what games are being played. I think that's going to be part of this. Like this is two companies that are at war with one another, and there's going to be lots of tricks out there.
It's honestly a war that is fascinating. I mean, it's a war that has been going on, but it's really heating up now because we are seeing, WWE take their A properties now to compete against, well, in this case, like, AEW's B property, but it's a head-to-head competition nonetheless. So we'll see what the next chapter may be.
The last thing on this, as we look at October 29th, if you are Tony Khan, how are you booking that show? Is it just business as usual? This will also be a case where you will not have the benefit of a live Rampage that night. It will be a taped edition. And how do you look at that night and not think that there is a chance that you could have SmackDown competition against you? Like, how do you book that episode? Or is Friday night a strong evidence of keep booking the show the way you're doing it and put as strong a show as you can, but don't go out of your wheelhouse just because it may be a heavier competitive night than it is right now as we're speaking?
I think if I'm Tony Khan, I'm looking at this week as, like the drip of blood in the water. And I'm going to, like, it's not going to be often, I think, where you'll be placed into these sort of head-to-head conversations with the WWE. And if your goal is to make headlines, to continue to put AEW in that same conversation, I think you put your best foot forward. And now I'm not saying, like, Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, like, on that show, but I think you have an elevated, higher, more, interesting than usual edition of Rampage, just to really give yourself the best chance, because whether or not they go head-to-head, we will be comparing those numbers on Monday after that.
And they did very well with CM Punk against Matt Sydal, which is not an opponent that's going to jump off the screen at people, and Ruby Soho and the Bunny as well. Like, when you look at the whole show, they were also going against a replay of SmackDown on FS1 because they replayed it immediately after. So you still did have SmackDown competition for that 10:30 to 11 spot as well on top of it. So there you go. That is a big breakdown of Friday night's viewership. And on Tuesday, we'll have not just the Raw numbers, but we'll also have Dynamite from Saturday night, which I think will have a little less fanfare than Friday night's numbers.
A bit less, yeah.
So quickly here, we did the whole show today on the A block final, but in a nutshell, Kota Ibushi won the A block, defeating Kenta today. And your final A block standings, this is how everything shook out, with Kota Ibushi going to the finals for the fourth consecutive year with 14 points, beating Shingo Takagi, who finished with 13, Kenta and Zack with 12, Toriano, Tomohiro Ishii tying with 10, Great Khan with 8, Tangaloa 6 points, Yujiro 5, and Tetsuya Naito 0. Wei, as we looked at this A block, and they had the curveball of losing Naito, but this was the block that certainly I think had the most exciting matchups on paper. How would you assess the A block performance?
I think better than expected. Yeah, I would say the same for B block as well. I would say, expectations going into this G1, I think people were not anticipating very much at all. I remember when these rosters were announced, and specifically with B Block, everybody was really dreading it. But A Block too, with names like Yujiro and Tangaloa attached to it. In Yujiro's case, I think those criticisms were very much warranted. But people like Tangaloa, people like Tamatanga, and Chase Owens, I think, have actually really impressed in the G1. And, for the most part, the quality of what New Japan has been able to offer for these shows was very much maintained, with most of these shows offering at least one or two matches of the week, I would say, that I would at least recommend, for people to check out if they're into the quality and the standard that New Japan has been offering. Freshness of matchups and anticipation for the matchups and the star power for these matchups is a very different story. But in terms of pure match quality, I thought this block delivered.
Yeah, I think whatever you lost with Naito, you certainly gained with, everyone has an expectation of what Zack Sabre Jr. is going to do, but he definitely outperformed the field. I just think he is, he's my G1 MVP thus far. We do still have 2 shows to go, and maybe someone will usurp him, but he was masterful throughout this past month, and I think he was really in a block with Tomohiro Ishii that I think that's pretty high bar to achieve. I think Zach did it.
In particular with his style. Zach is always incredibly consistent, even through these G1s, but because he works such a technical style, I think we tend to favor the types of matches like, an Ishii or a Shingo Takagi will wrestle, where that's just totally exhausting, full of very stiff striking. Zach doesn't really do that style, and as a result, it's, we kind of have a peak coffee rating for a Zach match. But this year, he managed to work that style so incredibly well. And it's also a case where I think having a quiet crowd doesn't necessarily hinder his style as much as it does the others. But his matches have all been fantastic. Even a match against Toru Yano was interesting in its own way. So if you're going to follow anybody's journey through this G1, it would be Zach's.
AAA held their press conference today for their December 4th card in Monterrey that they are billing, they're branding this as a second Triple Mania this year. So they announced Kenny Omega versus El Hijo del Vikingo for the Mega Heavyweight title, which is going to be tremendous, and a 6-man tag with Psycho Clown, Pagano, and Cain Velasquez against Rey Escorpion, Taurus, and a mystery partner. And I will not be the first one to suggest it because it was out there immediately. Will we get the meeting of 2 former UFC heavyweight champions in Monterrey?
Jeez, wow. Where have they fought? Where were the places where they? Are you talking about JDS? Of course.
JDS, yes.
Yeah, where did they fight before?
Their first fight was on the Fox premiere in Anaheim. Their second fight was in Vegas, and their third fight was in Houston.
Oh, okay. Well, very good, Sean, by the way. That was a quick test, and the man did not have to resort. Only the Wikipedia in his head did this man have to resort to. Well, I don't know what the sea level is like in Monterey, but you can, we wonder if Kane will be at his best level.
Maybe they'll bring in Verdum to face sea level Kane.
At this level, at this point, are you kidding me? I think the entire, that is the path of a UFC heavyweight, okay? You win the title, you maybe kind of, peter out, get out of MMA, and you get right into professional wrestling. The precedent has been set.
And Dorian Roldan stated that the Lucha Brothers and Dragon Lee and Dralistico will be on the card, maybe with FTR. These notes coming from a Lucha blog, the Cubs fan, who may be the distributor of this pay-per-view on Twitch, because AAA still does not have a way to actually stream these shows into the US, amazingly. But this is very confusing because you had the Lucha Brothers retain their titles last weekend against Laredo Kid and Vikingo, and then you have Dragon Lee and Dralistico appear and challenge them. And now the Lucha Brothers have lost the AAA tag titles. So it's you've shot this angle, and now you have new champions. And our announcement today was maybe with FTR on this show. So it seems like this card is very much a work in progress. And unless Dorian Roldan is seen at a sidelines of a football game, we may not know the card until, closer to December 4th.
Maybe you'll get the Super Ranas show up. Technically, they're the champions, not FTR.
That's true.
You have
That's
anybody
true.
show up in those costumes.
That's right.
There's something super fishy about, I think, the way that whole thing unfolded. That I don't know if necessarily tells me that was the original plan.
But Kenny Omega and El Hijo del Vikingo, that is going to have a ton of interest. It's going to put the Cubs fans' Twitch demand to the limit, I think.
I don't know if there's a limit to Twitch, but yeah, good for the Cubs fans.
That's a lot of pressure.
Well, I trust Twitch's servers to be, but yeah, how is his? What if his computer like craps out in the middle of it, or what if he has internet issues? That'd be terrible for AAA.
It's quite the predicament. But hey, he's kind of fallen into this role.
Well, thank goodness that we have this, because Vikingo is arguably the most jiffable wrestler right now, and I think for a lot of people this will really boost his exposure being in a match with Kenny Omega. So I'm looking forward to that one for sure.
And just finishing off here, we've got quick notes. NXT on Tuesday night will have Tommaso Ciampa and Braun Breaker against the Grizzled Young Vets, a triple threat involving a member of each team that are in the tag title three-way at Halloween Havoc. So a member of Io Shirai and Zoe Stark, Indy Hartwell and Portia Parada, Way's favorite, and Gigi Dolan and JC Jane. Andre Chase versus Odyssey Jones and Tony D'Angelo in action. But the headline, Way, is that Halloween Havoc will now feature an appearance by Chucky.
I mean, it really is perfect, isn't it?
Welcome to the new NXT.
And was not Rick Steiner not a part of that original sketch?
Yes. If ever there was a time, unfortunately, if Rick Steiner shows up, no one would know what his connection is to NXT 2.0.
Yeah, he'd be Rick Breaker.
Could you imagine? It's Rick Breaker.
Yeah, no, he'd be.
It's the dog face breaker.
Probably Brick Breaker. Yeah, a lot of fun you could have, sure.
And Bound for Glory has sold out Sam's Town Live for this Saturday night's pay-per-view. So there you go. They will be there 3 straight nights. I'm looking forward to this show. It's a good card. Christian Cage and Josh Alexander is the main event. They've done a really good build-up with Deonna Purrazzo and Mickie James. It looks like a very good card, and filling Sam's Town Live before the arrival of Minoru Suzuki next week.
Wow, crazy, amazing. And as you mentioned, Davey Encino will be doing that?
Correct, yes. That show will be out Sunday with a whole post-show covering Bound for Glory. But now we are bound for Raw from Sacramento, California at the Golden One Center. This season finale of Raw, Way, because next week will be the season premiere.
It's that's how it works, yeah. So what do we do? What are we going to do now? We're off season. Does it mean like we get to take a vacation?
Yeah, they're all going on a all expenses paid vacation to Saudi Arabia.
That is right. Sure.
They're getting some time off this week. Charlotte comes out to start the show and asks where the roster is for her big farewell when she goes to SmackDown. She runs down Bianca Belair and calls it a conspiracy that she has to defend the title against Belair. Charlotte is confronted by Bianca, who is informed, "You won't even go here anymore," which this line has certainly been exhausted. I get it. It's the catchphrase, but we got it.
Maybe, on the main roster, she hasn't used it all that much, so maybe it deserves repeating a couple more times before they put it on the t-shirt.
Well, Bianca says that she can say goodbye to the Raw Women's title and then go on. She starts going on about life giving you trials and tribulations. Maybe Charlotte could be a bit kinder. The crowd is dead for this. And she says she will take the title at Crown Jewel and then become a double champion after winning tonight. How is that for a rookie, Charlotte? This was a very long promo, and it was a WWE promo. And Flair goes to attack her and escaped a KOD and got knocked off the apron to end our opening segment.
I mean, I found it pretty typical, of a WWE opening segment, just there to kind of promote the main event between the two participants, and delivery to me seemed perfectly adequate. In fact, I enjoyed Charlotte's promo. And Bianca Belair,
were you as behind Bianca to win this title as Hangman Page? Did this inspire your confidence?
Oh, like after the Page promo.
This was to get you ready for her going for the big championship. How did she do?
It's a very different case, of course. But I will say I think Bianca still comes across as very charismatic, very likable, and I think she's also a very, she's a babyface character that's working well.
My favorite, Kevin Patrick, meets up with the New Day. We didn't get too much Kevin Patrick on this show, but he goes up to Xavier Woods. He's about to have his King of the Ring semifinal. Xavier, how big of an opportunity is this for you? It's big, Kevin. It's big. Because if I win, I advance. And if I lose, I don't. So it's big. And he mentions past kings like Ken Shamrock and Booker T. A rare time Ken Shamrock has been brought up on WWE programming.
And Mabel, don't forget King Mabel.
Oh, did he mention Mabel too? All the greats, yes. They plug next week's show being the season premiere in Houston. So there you have it. The city that got Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos 3, also getting the season premiere of Raw. So it's all set up. Perfect. Woods and Jinder Mahal. Winner gets to go face Finn Balor. Mahal sends Woods over the corner onto the steps. They go through a break. Woods fights off the Colossus and then gets caught with the Colossus and then grabs the bottom rope. Woods then headbutts Mahal off the turnbuckle, scales the top, elbow drop, and finishes Jinder Mahal for the win. The crowd was genuinely happy here. It's like, wait a minute, we all wanted this guy to win, and he won? And Woods celebrated by putting on the cape, holding up the scepter, and the announcers state that this is really tempting fate, as they call it bad luck. So we will get Xavier Woods and Finn Balor for the crown.
Yeah, every one of these Woods matches, I have kind of picked him to lose. And it goes against, I think, traditional pro wrestling booking. Of course, you put so much TV time on the babyface, they're probably going to win. Not in this company.
No way. This is the complete opposite. It's like, wait a minute, we want this too much. This is too good to be true.
Yeah, so every time he wins, I'm actually surprised. I thought that this was going to be the swerve. But thus far, it has seemed like a pretty straightforward babyface push for Xavier Woods.
So are you going out on a limb to believe
not
that?
At all.
Okay, now he gets payback.
Yeah, he's going to lose. But in this case, I mean, yeah, pretty effective WWE match overall. Woods in ring, I think he
got all the way across the ring with that elbow.
Mm-hmm. He's looking very good and certainly has the crowd behind him.
And this was the end of Jinder Mahal, Veer, and Shanky.
Oh, you're right. They're breaking them up.
Didn't get any kind of send-off, nothing.
Jinder will be with Veer? Is that right?
He'll be with Shanky on SmackDown.
Shanky, okay. So Veer
will be here, and I imagine Veer is going to get a push, it would seem like.
We'll see.
We'll see. At least the start of one. We will see if we get the remainder of one. Austin Theory's on his phone. He is asked, what did it mean to beat Jeff Hardy? He says, I used to look up to Jeff, but last week I was looking down on Jeff. And then Reggie and the geeks run through. Reggie is hiding, but gets caught by R-Truth, and Theory gets involved. And he asks R-Truth if he knows who he is. And R-Truth answers, a theorist. And Truth issues a challenge if Austin can get permission from his mommy to stay up late. And the announcers gave the fakest laugh at this lame joke.
Yeah. So, I mean, his gimmick is that he's young.
His gimmick is Paige Van Zandt, the male version.
Well, the selfie taker?
Yes.
He's younger than Paige, right?
Paige is like 26, 27.
Oh, wow.
So Austin Theory is definitely... How old's Austin Theory?
24.
Okay, so he's a bit younger.
She's done a lot.
She's been fighting in UFC. She started in UFC like 2014, so she's been around for a minute.
2014. So wait a second. She's 26 now. She started when she was 19.
19 or 20? That sounds about right.
What? That's crazy.
Let's see here. I've got the age right here. 27.
Wow. Amazing.
There's a big... so Austin Theory and Jeff Hardy takes place because R-Truth comes out and stating, when you accepted the challenge, it was for my friend, not me. So Jeff takes the match. Dude, no matter how much they beat this guy, he's still one of the most over baby faces. And it really was the last pay-per-view where the audience got so into him, and it's just continued each week. And there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's not like they're doing anything with Jeff, but this crowd... They love Jeff Hardy.
I really do consider him a legitimate superstar. You know, one of arguably your more recognizable names in the WWE currently, and they don't really see him as an active guy that they want to push. And in fact, because he keeps getting these reactions, they probably see it as justification for how we can continue to beat him with our younger guys. But you know the story. It's like, once you're past a certain age, you're in this company, unless you have reached a certain star level. And unfortunately, they don't consider Jeff at that level.
Well, this is the perfect example of someone on the young side and someone on the old side and what they're trying to do here. Although the ending of this, it's kind of, this kind of 50-50 thing. So Theory does Hardy's mannerisms and the crowd is just this asshole. How dare you? He yanks Hardy on the edge and then hits a neck breaker on the floor. Hardy responds with a poetry in motion into the barricade and then goes for the swanton, but it gets stopped when Theory knocks him off balance and hits the ATL, which is not identified as such on Raw yet, and pins Jeff clean. He takes a selfie on his back next to Jeff, who then gets up, makes his comeback, hits the twist of fate, and takes his own selfie with Austin Theory, which... this just felt kind of like, well, we're going to give you a win over Jeff Hardy, but then we're going to immediately take it back afterwards. So I don't know if really anything was accomplished here other than, well, we don't want to beat Jeff too much, but we also want to push Austin.
I think it's their way of trying to push Austin ultimately, but not to completely devalue Jeff Hardy as he moves on to SmackDown. It's a case of 50-50, but I do feel like it was more so maybe 70-30 here because Theory got a very clean win over an established star and going forward can, claim that he beat Jeff Hardy twice. And he has the selfies to prove it.
In theory, this is the end of this. This was the climax.
This was the end of the feud.
Okay. Big E and Drew meet backstage. Drew said that he just saw red last week and hit the Claymore. He's sorry. Big E's sorry. He shouldn't have tagged in. It was a mistake. So Big E suggests that tonight we coexist and then we can fight on Thursday. And then he did his intro right into Drew's face. So they're back together for the third week in a row. They're basically a formed tag team now.
It's like a rom-com, will they or won't they? And of course, we all want to see them get together at the end.
DeVille and Pierce met with Charlotte. She was never asked if she wanted to defend her title against Belair. She has no farewell, and she made this title relevant. I smell a conspiracy. Sonya says it makes perfectly logical sense for the SmackDown talent that has not started here on Raw yet to get a title match immediately. And Flair's like, oh, fine. She'll remain the Raw champion, she says. Big E and Drew versus Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. I've still yet to check on the status of Ziggler and Roode. I think they're on SmackDown, but they equally could be on Raw. So Big E and Drew are getting along, and Big E knocks Ziggler off the apron while he's in with Roode, but then misses a splash as they get the heat on E for a long time. That sets up Drew for the hot tag. Belly to bellies all around. Kip up. He does an inverted Alabama slam, sending Ziggler on top of his partner. And then Drew gets shoved towards E, but he holds up so he doesn't knock him over. So Ziggler pulls E to the floor. Roode takes over. They do an elevated assisted famouser, but Drew fights up.
That thing looked awesome. I don't know if they've done that before, but man, I know this team doesn't win too often, but whenever
they're a good team, they're slotted. That's their biggest negative, but they're a great team. They work very well together. I mean, Roode is sound. Ziggler, guy doesn't screw up. They're a perfectly reliable tag team. I think it's just everyone sees them in the spot that they're never going to go down, but they're never going to go up.
I mean, their purpose is there to basically give wins to, whichever babyface act you are pushing, and they can both promo, so they always manage to get heat. But man, I love this. It was basically like a backdrop into an elevated famouser. I thought it looked great.
What happened to Big Bob?
Who?
They didn't run with that. Big Bob. Remember?
Oh, right. Big Bob.
I thought they were going to make a thing out of that. Yeah. Went nowhere. Anyway, Drew fights them off. Big E returns to the apron. He gets the tag in the honest way and hits the big ending. Pins Roode. The two men are existing in each other's presence. But then Big E turns around to catch Drew. They awkwardly shake hands, but then they start trading words and getting upset. And Big E says, I never want to be you. And he can't wait for Crown Jewel as he holds up the belt. So you have the two rivals going into the match on Thursday.
Yeah, and over the past few weeks, I feel like they've done a decent job of having these two kind of dance around each other, interacting with each other in these forced tag team situations. I can't really say it's a feud that's ever gotten all too personal. The most I really felt for it was hearing Drew talk about how he still hasn't had his his big, title moment in front of a crowd yet. And like I would have loved to have heard maybe a few more promos that kind of dug a little bit deeper to really heat the feud up. Instead, it's just been kind of weeks of like, you stole my pin in a tag team match. That means nothing. Shit. All right, you can have it back this week. It's fine. It puts them on the screen and reminds us of the match, but I don't know if it gets me personally that invested, but I'm sure the match.
Could you imagine getting so angry over such an affront?
Maybe they get paid more if they actually get the pinfall.
I don't think that's how tag matches work.
Yeah, maybe not.
You get the win. The Street Profits are back on Raw. They're here to plug Crown Jewel. And they state that AJ Styles is the kid in the group project at school that does no work, but still gets an A.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what the character is. And he's fine at it because, he's so funny. But, man, I hate the fact that it's AJ Styles in this role.
Styles and Omos walk in, and AJ calls them dorks. Omos says Raw is his house. AJ corrects him and says it's their house. The Profits leave. AJ says they have a real dumb name, and Omos just says, really dumb.
Oh, it's a great name.
The Street Profits.
Yeah, like Profits.
Mansoor and Cedric Alexander. This was short. Alexander hit a suplex and backbreaker, and then was caught with a tilt-a-whirl to an inverted DDT, and did a slingshot to a neckbreaker. 342. Mansoor wins. Mustafa Ali comes out calling him a fanboy, and he is going to wipe the smile off Mansoor's face in his hometown and everyone's face that shows up at the show as well. That's a lot of smiles he is going to take off of people's faces on Thursday. Mansoor tells him to shut the hell up. Look at me. I said, look at me, you piece of trash. I'll be smiling after I beat you senseless and prove that you are a sorry, cowardly excuse for a man, and then addressed him in Arabic to end the segment.
Yeah, the first time we've heard that on at least, stateside. He's a great promo, Mansoor. Showed great fire here, and, I guess for the first time really in his WWE run, actually has some material to get, angry about. So,
they didn't go all the way with him. He wasn't allowed to call him. I said, look at me, you piece of shit.
We got some S-bombs on the show for sure.
Yeah, they've got a quota of 1 per show that they can utilize.
Yeah, so this feels like it's a pretty generic effort at building a team that can or can't get along. Turns out they can't get along, so now you have a tag team match or a singles match heading into Saudi Arabia. I don't really think it's a program that's been that effective at making Mansoor a standout star at all. But
he will be received like one.
Saudi Arabia, no doubt. And this, promo in Arabic at the end, I'm sure, did a whole lot for him.
I think it'd be a big mistake to throw this on the kickoff. I think this should be on the main show.
I think it'll be a peak of the show.
I think it could be too. There was the year I think it was the year he faced Cesaro, and believe me, it was a crowd that was not into any of the matches. So it's not like it was a high bar, but man, it was night and day. The reaction that match got versus anything else.
Yeah, I mean, it's the hometown guy on your big show, so I definitely can see it closer to the middle. Maybe even a starting match, but I would say middle.
So on Peacock, there is a Top Chef spinoff called Family Style, and we have a WWE edition featuring Naomi, The Miz, Maurice, and Drew McIntyre. That almost makes me wish we had access to this, but not really.
Yeah. Okay. What will they be doing? Will they be joining them? Will they be? They'll be tasting the food. They'll be
probably. Yeah, maybe they're the judges.
I see. Who do you think would be the best cook among them?
The best cook? I don't think The Miz would be a good cook. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Not really sure.
I mean, Maurice has children, so
Yeah,
I don't know if that's if that helps or not.
But who's taking care of the children and who's doing the cooking? Maybe he's doing the cooking because
That could be. It could be the Miz.
maybe Drew will surprise a lot of people with his culinary skills.
He could definitely.
He knows
chop
his way around a knife.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Then we had the first ever no holds barred interview.
Is this really a first ever?
I don't recall ever hearing a no holds barred interview. So no wrestling holds are illegal here. Anything goes in separate rooms via satellite between Bill Goldberg. Why didn't they call this a no words barred interview?
Well, I mean, you sometimes...
Hey, asshole. I'm going to fucking kill you.
Well, sometimes in mid-interview, you might want to put on a hammerlock.
So, they have just gone so far. The story here is that Lashley has caused problems to Goldberg's son. So Bill is coming to kill Lashley. And that is the story. And he is literally out to kill the man. Lashley calls this nonsense. Said, that's also criminal for you to try to kill me. Just so you know, I could call the authorities and have you apprehended. It's like, this is like evidence. This would be Exhibit A if a trial were ever to arise over the death of Bobby Lashley, that this man did threaten to kill you on national television. He asks Bill how your son feels about all this. Goldberg tells him to pick his words carefully because I'll just make you suffer more. Bobby says you can't kill the Almighty, and Bill ends by saying, safe travels, kill you Thursday, Bobby.
Jeez. Yeah, they're really going all in with this killing stuff ahead of this Saudi show. It's yeah, I mean,
What can you say?
What can you say? Exactly. Yeah, what I will say is that I feel like this was some. I mean, if we're strictly looking at it from a pro wrestling trash talking standpoint, I think Lashley has been really good this month. Speaking for himself, without MVP, he has really impressed me. But Goldberg, I thought in here, I mean, depending on your taste level for this type of talk, I thought he was fantastic. You know, the way he comes across in these really makes you believe in the Goldberg character and makes you forget about, you know, recent lackluster in-ring performances. When he is talking, his charisma, his intensity is still every bit Goldberg. So I enjoy him in these a lot.
Randy Orton and Riddle are in the back. Riddle thought Orton was so convincing last week about not having a plan when he clearly did. Deep in his heart, he knew Randy had a plan. Orton says there was never a plan. Riddle goes on about how the Street Profits want the smoke. It's given him many ideas. What's the plan tonight? Orton says it's to win. Let's go get some smoke. We had videos throughout the night for all the talent that's coming to Raw that you've seen on Raw plenty of times. So it will be a shock to the system next week. Randy Orton and Riddle against the Street Profits.
The best headline was Bearcat Lee claws his way back to Raw next week.
Claws his way, yes. I can't wait. Non-title match here for this is the whole tag division we had out here because AJ and Omos got involved, and presumably these three will be feuding over the titles for eternity. Montez Ford looked really good in here. I could see him and Randy having some singles matches down the road at some point, and they look very promising. Riddle delivered this spinning gut wrench. Ford made the tag to Dawkins, who came in with his usual great hot tag. He did a double underhook slam. Riddle came back with the ripcord knee, and then Orton and Ford are in. Randy hits him with the power slam, and dude, Montez Ford sells this power slam like Rock taking a stunner. It was insane. He takes a draping DDT, and as Randy is setting up for the RKO, AJ's music plays, but only Omos walks out. Orton turns around, and there's AJ to hit the phenomenal forearm for the DQ. Omos chokeslams Riddle on the apron, and then military presses Ford. And the crowd was upset at this. And if nothing else, this was an excuse for us all to see AJ's brand new t-shirt. Phenomenally done, colossally won.
Interesting. Okay.
Talk about a mouthful. I would never say nor wear and tell people, look, guys, phenomenally done, colossally won. Dude, is colossally even a word?
I know what
This is stretching grammatical acceptance to the limits here, but there you go.
Yeah, I mean, they continue to heat up these programs between AJ and Omos against these two new rivals, or at least one new rival in the Street Profits. I'm curious to know like how long they're going to keep RK Bro together. I think there's still so much life in the feud, in the pair that I probably wouldn't break them up. You know, can you see them switching the titles?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, why not, eh? What difference does it make?
We also had Omos with the karate kick to Randy's shoulder.
The roundhouse, yes.
The roundhouse.
Yeah. I think they're doing a good job of building and protecting Omos, you know, to feel like a big deal, and I think he'll get a nice reaction in Saudi Arabia.
Queen's Crown semifinal, Shayna Baszler and Doudrop. Doudrop calls Shayna the most dangerous opponent she's faced here on Raw, but she's also an insecure bully. Zelina Vega's hanging out. She's just wearing the crown and cape. Baszler, Jimmy Smith notes, is channeling her inner Marco Huas. I thought she was going to start foot stomping here. She kicks away at Doudrop, but then gets caught with an exploder and a cannonball, but then gets lifted and goes to the Kirifuda clutch. Doudrop throws her off. Doudrop misses the crossbody, and the Kirifuda clutch is reapplied, and it's on forever before Doudrop just kind of like bridges off her back and pins her in 2 minutes and 47 seconds, bringing the grand total of the Queen's Crown tournament matches. 6 matches going a combined 13 minutes and 48 seconds.
Wow. Well, we don't know. Maybe the match on Thursday will go half an hour.
Yes, certainly.
60-minute. Yeah, I mean, I believe this was Shayna's first loss since her renewed push.
Oh.
Is that right?
Okay. Sure.
And, you know, I would say that I didn't see her go, you know, facing Zelina Vega in the final, so you had to kind of get your way out of this one. And if they had to book Shayna to lose a match and still deliver a bit of a finish to give Doudrop something heading into those finals, I don't think this was the worst way of doing it.
They are both going to SmackDown, so you can continue this.
That's right. You're right. So it was relatively, I would say, protective of Shayna Baszler. If you're, again, not ideal, but not the worst either. So it was a brief match. I would actually like to see these
second longest of the tournament way. Not that brief.
It's too bad because, like, I think what we got to see here looked really good between these two. I would love to see a longer match on a pay-per-view at some point. What do you who do you expect to win?
Doudrop.
Yeah, I think so too. The Yas Queen.
Yas Queen, yes. Nikki Ash and Rhea Ripley meet with Bianca Belair, and they welcome her to Raw by giving her a Raw baseball hat that no human being would wear in public.
Yeah, I think it's going right into the trash.
Belair literally said, "What am I going to do with this?"
Wouldn't she have had one the last time she was here, like a year ago?
Oh, that's true. I mean, it was, yeah. Maybe this is a brand new
new logo.
It's a fitted cap this time, although I don't think it was. It'd be very hard for her to wear a fitted cap with the braid.
Yeah.
Jimmy Smith, big no-no here. He plugged next week the season debut of Raw, and Corey Graves, you could hear Vince McMahon here just scream, "No, Jimmy, it's the season premiere of Raw, you idiot. Not the season debut, it's the season premiere." Someone could be confused at what this means next week. You know what season premiere means? Jack shit in comparison to the season debut. That's what it means next week. This is unbelievable. Jimmy Smith, one day he's going to... I think Jimmy Smith is too much of a pro, but I long for the day that play-by-play guy's there and we just get the meltdown on air.
Oh, I mean, I could imagine the conversation after the show in private.
Finn Balor versus Mace.
Mm-hmm.
Finn Balor versus Mace. Hour 3. Xavier Woods comes out, does the exact same thing we just saw Zelina Vega do. puts on all the cape and there's an edict when there's a King of the Ring match. You have to come out and you got to stare at this thing. Like you're at the window at Macy's and you're just staring at what's on sale.
Well, how else do you know what they're going to fight for?
Oh my God. It's such a pattern. Crowd is totally dead here for Mace. They probably had no idea who this guy was. He hit a sidewalk slam. Balor with the double stomp, does his whole comeback, sling blade, drop kick, coup de grace, 245. He won. Did I miss anything?
Nope.
Stare down with Xavier Woods and Kofi came out. Does Kofi have to do the whole trip to Saudi Arabia just to be in his corner?
It's a great question. Yeah, I don't know what other matches or he would be in.
I hope he gets a nice payday if he's got to do that whole trip for corner duty.
Yeah. But not much to speak of in the match. It was just the showcase for Balor, leading to the stare down between the two finalists here.
Yeah, this was Finn Balor's. Oh, let's get this right. This is his arrival on Raw because he was on SmackDown, and Mace he's on one of the shows.
I think he's
T-Bar's on the other.
Yeah, I forget. Yeah. Anyway, so you had here like Woods do some trash talking to Balor. He's like he specifically says, "You're gonna stay a prince." Artist formerly known as. I didn't even put the whole Prince thing together.
Yeah,
with Balor. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So do you have a prediction for this?
I don't look at this as I look at the King of the Ring as what's the most like material we can get for a character.
Who's gonna wear the crown after this?
Yeah, so I could see it being Woods. With Balor, it's like okay, he can be King Balor. Mm-hmm. Does that do anything? Is that of any note? I don't think it does a whole lot for either, but I could see more ideas for an Xavier Woods character than I do a Balor. And I think that's the only value of this King of the Ring.
What are the ideas? Like for a babyface, I mean, it's typically a heel gimmick to walk around with the king.
Well, maybe he now becomes more of this. Maybe he adopts an accent. Maybe he. I don't know.
I actually think it'll be Balor.
Okay.
You know, I think there's more emotional story there for Woods to, after following a heartbreak, and I think you can actually break off into do that. And
maybe Balor wins and Woods gets to play Jerry Lawler and break the chair over his back.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the Balor is already like the Demon King, so I suppose the Demon gets to wear the crown.
Yeah. Well, do both of them become king?
I think so. Yeah. Well, it depends on who wrestles the match.
Well, the Demon still, I think, has a sprained ankle from the last pay-per-view, so he's nursing that. John Morrison is meditating. The Viking Raiders come in and ask him what he's doing. He's searching for his reason in this company. A mystical force.
I like, come to think of it, I think. Do you think we'll get the Demon in Saudi Arabia? It's a big enough show, big enough stage.
Maybe, yeah.
Because otherwise, it's like Balor versus Woods is an okay, attractive match, but it hardly feels like it's that big of a deal. And
does it have to be a really quick match then with the Demon? You just have him run through Woods?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
Anyway, they just talk about Chi, and we're like, what's going on here? Three people just look aimless here.
I'm a little disappointed they just dropped that water gimmick here. It's completely gone, and in favor of what? Like this kind of
character. This character is circling the drain.
Yeah, seriously. Like, it's just like, oh, look at this weirdo. Like this weird Buddhist mystical guy.
I know it's a silly comparison, but like, look at two guys who their partners have been not available in The Miz and Darius Martin. And just like the different focus on, like, with Morris, it's like, oh, you don't have your partner. You're completely worthless to us.
Oh my God, Darius Martin wouldn't even be used on. Dante Martin wouldn't even be used on this show, He'd be like a pilot. 'Cause he's from Top Flight. Like an airline attendant or something.
Charlotte, hey, we haven't even talked about that, is getting from Riyadh to Wichita, Kansas on Friday night. This will be the one time of the year that people will be, I guess, paying attention to Flight Tracker.
I suppose so, yeah. But I mean, I think the roster's split enough that they could probably still, like, I'm sure they're accounting for the worst, I mean, not the worst, but like they're accounting for. If
I think you have to always go into it. It's like, this is a possibility. We should be ready for it. We shouldn't be caught, and we can't just bring up the NXT team this time.
No, not this time. No.
But you're right. There's enough people back here that I think you could, but it would be not ideal. But it's not like Wichita. I say it because Wichita, Kansas, like, not exactly a travel hub. You know what I mean? Like, it's, we're not talking about Chicago or something. Yeah,
no,
I mean, they're on
from Riyadh to Wichita.
Well, I mean, they're going to be on a private jet. They're not flying commercial too.
Are they flying? Like, oh, okay, so they can fly the whole roster. One of those deals, like the chartered deals.
They usually charter a jet or a plane to go over there.
Well, that's nice.
Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair is the main event for the Raw Women's Championship. This match had, I think I counted them all, 49 moonsaults.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
There were a lot of moonsaults. Both went for handspring versions. So early on here, this was my detective work for the whole match, was Charlotte's mouth. Because my first inclination was, looks like a bloody mouth. And then you're looking closer, and it's like, the ref never puts the gloves on. I was like, is that lipstick? And I think my conclusion was it was blood.
It looked like blood to me.
I thought it was blood. They did go up close to her, like, later in the match, and it certainly looked like blood. But I never saw, usually you always see the ref put, like, the gloves on to check when they're, and I never saw that in the match. So, anyway.
Yeah, I think it was blood, or at least it looked like it, and I thought it really added to how deranged and psychotic it made Charlotte look in the match.
It kind of reminded me of, like, Chelsea Green's character.
Yeah, totally.
So Flair lands on her feet from a moonsault and then hits the standing version, the Andrade spot, which looked really nice, and then got hit with a spine buster by Belair, and Charlotte rolls to the floor. The camera is up close on her for, oh, shit.
Just gave it right to us. Oh, shit. Yeah.
So, and then they replayed it, and you got it again with the sound of it as well. So anyway, I mean, shit is clearly, they can get away with it on Raw. Flair hits a moonsault to the floor, laying out Belair. The natural selection gets blocked. Flair then avoids getting hit with the braid, and Belair lifts her for the KOD. Flair holds on to the rope, snaps her neck on the top rope, and then spears Belair for a 2 count. The audience pops, drags her by the braid. Corey Graves is comparing this to Fury and Wilder. She misses another moonsault off the top, and Belair rotates her over with a released German, landing on her front. Another near fall, and Belair is aghast that the woman has kicked out. She hits a sunset bomb for another 2 count, and with that, Charlotte grabs a chair and hits her, and this 20-minute match ends in a DQ, and then Belair takes the chair, gets in one shot, and we just end the show. Part of this match for me is like, maybe this is going to be a really good match, but I will bet the bank that we are getting a bullshit finish. Now, where they swerved me way was that I assumed Becky and Sasha were going to show up here. And instead, we got an even worse one with just this lame chair shot at the end of it. So, there you go.
Well, I mean, to me, they swerved us by giving us an actual finish for Becky versus Sasha on Friday. But unfortunately, they didn't do it here. And it was very disappointing for me because I thought this was a great match up until the end here. These two were fantastic together.
They really got the crowd into it.
Their chemistry as these mirror images in terms of ability, we've seen bits and pieces of it throughout their interactions, but I think we saw really we saw it at its best here. So I don't doubt these two are going to continue to be career rivals in the same way Bianca has already established something with Sasha. I think Bianca and Charlotte it's going to be a series of wonderful combinations, and they were building towards this, I think, being one of those matches that might actually get talked about for some time until the unfortunate finish. And I thought there was a real chance that they were going to do a title switch tonight, just kind of given the whole situation with her holding the Raw belt and moving to SmackDown and everything. But they decided to go the route of delay, you know?
I thought when they were pushing Charlotte with, like, bringing up, like, it's a conspiracy, I thought, like, okay, here's some great ammunition for her to lose tonight and go with this, like, this conspiracy against her on SmackDown. afterward. Now, after watching this, how do you see this title thing shaking up? Does that change your expectation for Crown Jewel in terms of who comes out with the title?
Okay, meaning,
does Becky just keep the title and they just swap belts? Is that what happens?
They could do anything. I don't have much of a prediction. I don't necessarily see it. Could it be Bianca? Could Bianca win if she's going to stick on SmackDown, and then they do that trade? I mean, I'm actually thinking Becky keeps it, and they just do the lame trade. So they can do whatever they want and come up with whatever explanation to swap the belts. It doesn't really matter, but I really like the match up until the finish, and a really unfortunate generic ending, basically just kind of ending the match.
So that was Raw going into Crown Jewel, and our card for Thursday is Mansoor versus Mustafa Ali, Hell in a Cell with Edge and Seth Rollins. Are you high on that match?
I am. Yeah, I mean, these two have had great matches so far, and being in a Hell in a Cell, I'm sure creatively they'll have a lot of interesting ideas. So
probably the longest match on the show.
Yeah, because it's not going to be Goldberg, hopefully. It's not going to be Lesnar. Maybe Becky and Bianca and Sasha, that might be a bit of a longer one too, but I think we know Edge and Seth have the capability of probably going.
I think they're going to go long. Like, I'm expecting like 25 to 30 for that one. Zelina Vega and Doudrop, which, if it's consistent, will not be long. Finn Balor, Xavier Woods in the King of the Ring final. Goldberg, Lashley, as Way said, I think shorter the better on that one, but we will see what we get out of that one. Big E and Drew McIntyre for the WWE title. RK Bro against AJ and Omos. Becky, Bianca Belair, and Sasha Banks for the SmackDown Women's title. And Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. My question to you, Way, do we get a finish in Reigns-Lesnar?
Oh, boy. Yeah. Reigns and Lesnar.
This one, to me, screams sports entertainment finish.
Oh, no doubt. Like, with all the Heyman stuff, I mean, Heyman posted on Instagram, and not to say, like, we look towards Instagram as any sort of indication, but he did one of his spoiler alert things talking about how he will be leaving Saudi Arabia with the WWE Universal Champion. So, take that for what you will. There will be some drama there. There will be some shenanigans on his part. And
the buildup has been very good.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. I honestly, like, I really hate to say it because I think we all know the nature of these shows, but on paper, I think this looks like a good card. Just completely objectively looking at what's there. And for me, that's because every match at least has some stakes attached to it. Can't say I'm all that excited about the tag team match between RK Bro and AJ and Omos, but everything else, we're at least going to see a direction for this Queen's Crown thing. The King of the Ring winners going to be there. Probably a very good match in a Hell in a Cell between Edge and Rollins. Goldberg Lashley, I think, has been built up well. Big E, Drew McIntyre, it's been a very standard build, but I think the match feels big between these two. And Becky, Bianca, and Sasha Banks, I think, will be a very good match too. And Mansoor.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it will hinge on the crowd engagement for a lot of these shows. Like, sometimes these shows have not had great crowd response to them.
Right.
It's a pretty big show though that they have built up. This is bigger than your typical B show for a WWE. This is a big card for them. Let's go to forum.postwrestling.com, where you can always drop your feedback after each show. Tonight's Raw generated a score of 3.55 out of 10.
Yeah. I mean, if you're looking at these finishes and the content of the show, I mean, I can see people being upset.
Not a whole lot of finishes or such to really sink your teeth into. I thought this was a Raw on the lower end that, sometimes you get. We did get some longer matches on this show, certainly. There were quite a lot. It was not the short match formula that we saw last week.
I mean, I really did enjoy Bianca versus Charlotte, but I mean, the finish just kind of tarnishes it and really, gives you no reason to want to go back and rewatch it, unfortunately.
Brian from New Jersey writes, good tag match between RK Bro and the Street Profits until the DQ finish. Good main event between Charlotte and Bianca until the DQ finish. Look forward to your Crown Jewel review as I continue to not watch these shows. He calls these the blood money shows. Hope they don't have any flight delays coming home from SmackDown.
I'm going to say Brandon for later here. We go to Alex from Portland who says, tag team match featuring the champs ends in a DQ. Women's title match ends in a DQ. Another Queen's Crown match going in less than 3 minutes. Perhaps my biggest takeaway from the show is that Bill Goldberg is going to travel to Saudi Arabia to kill a man. Goldberg must have had a presence because this crowd felt very dead at times, especially during the Bianca Charlotte promo. That ending was atrocious, but I really feel for the fans that attended live. You sit through 3 hours of selfies, promos, and underwhelming tournament matches, and then you get a main event title match that ends in a DQ. Not just that, but you're left with questions surrounding the champion since she's moving to the other show on Friday. Will this champion who just lost via DQ get stripped? Will she exchange her belt with the winner from Crown Jewel? Is this really how WWE envisions women's wrestling? It's how they envision all of their wrestling. I mean, that situation of like belts getting traded and such, it's
They did it. Like we joke about the swapping of the titles because that's the precedent they created the last time with the tag belts. So it's like, yeah, that's what they do in these situations. I just think it's so interesting just to watch I don't know. I just don't think it cuts it anymore to like, imagine building up for like a big match all show long. And it's like, that's your out at the end of it. And it's, yeah, I think for a long time, it's TV, you can get away with it. I think it becomes very tiresome and just such a groan when you build this up all match, you get 20 minutes, and that's your final message at the end of the show. Very, very flat.
And like, like with the Shayna loss, like there are ways. I understand if you don't want to have the belts change right before the match, but you can have Bianca Belair lose and I think still have her feel protected and as a real legitimate contender going into Thursday. I feel. I mean, people would be upset if they did that too, but then again, like maybe they shouldn't have booked this match. But then they also need these sort of attractive main events. So I don't know. Would a non-title match have worked as well, in your opinion, John?
It goes to the principle of it is that you wanted something big on this show. So for a week, you promoted Charlotte Flair and Bianca Belair for the title. When your audience is more and more educated to not care because you know what you're getting. So the whole point of this exercise is mute because there's no payoff to it. And there's a reason why Becky and Sasha gets promoted. And guess what? It really didn't deliver the number that I think they intended to.
Yeah, because people like me, I think fully expected a bullshit finish. But yeah, it's too bad. But, at least the content between the bell was very solid tonight.
Next, we go to, I think I'm up here. Muggin writes, WWE always makes the simplest solutions so hard. Bianca and Charlotte shut it down for most of the main event up until the DQ. It all but guarantees a lazy title trade taking place once Crown Jewel is in the rear view. Not to mention the Queen's Crown being an abject failure from the start. The women's roster has some great talent, but the booking under the main event level reeks of laziness. Where do we go from here? What an open-ended question.
Finally, we got a Kate from Montreal who says, if the WWE wants to end middling matches with DQs or countouts or whatever the other shenanigans they enjoy, I'm willing to let them. But I really dislike having good matches, ones where the talent are working their butts off, end that way. Street Profits, RK Bro, and especially Charlotte and Bianca were the victims tonight. Although Shayna versus Doudrop had the potential to be an excellent match, there was no reason to waste it on the Queen's Crown tournament. I have a feeling that Vega is going to win for no other reason than some people thinking that it's funny that Queen Zelina kind of rhymes.
Guys, we've got a great idea. And she could be very right.
Queen Zelina. That's a real stretch, but maybe.
What about the Queen of the C Block? Maybe that crown is at stake on Thursday as well.
Ooh, okay, yeah. Is Kate the new Queen of the C Block? I don't know. I'm not sure. We'll find out. It's really between Kate and Brad the Archivist for the crown, so we shall see. She asked, what realistically, i.e. no cutting it down to 2 hours, do you think could happen to make Raw into a better show?
Long-term storytelling, an idea of directions of where we're going in 1 month, 4 months, 6 months, isolating
matches with finishes.
I think that would be a start. I think you can look at like what is working to a pro wrestling fan on U.S. television, but I think that would admit that someone is doing pro wrestling better than us. I think on top of it, it would be
there are a lot of reasons, a lot of ways we can make the show better.
There are a lot of different ways.
It's not just the 3 hours that's really holding it back. I mean, 3 hours of this type of show, I think, is really holding it back. But can you imagine if Rampage was a 3-hour show? Or sorry, Dynamite was a 3-hour show? That would be exhausting. But I also think overall, by the end of it, hopefully they would take their time a little bit more. But I think you'd probably leave that quality of show using AEW's booking philosophies and their style of presenting matches pretty satisfied.
Yeah, I would not want to entertain that, but yeah, it would. I mean, like there was a time like those 3-hour nitros, like there was a time that those worked and they did really well. Like 1998 was the year they not only expanded Nitro to 3 hours at the beginning of the year, but added a whole other 2-hour show during the week. And it was their most not just their most profitable year, it was the most profitable year for any wrestling company in history in 1998. Now, there was a crash after that, but 1998, they expanded and they had a hot program. But I think by and large, I think 3 hours would be, I would have more concerns on the AEW side of a burnout factor for someone like a Tony Khan if he was commanded with doing 3 hours and another 2 on Friday.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you everyone for your feedback. We are going to sign off. We are back on Wednesday for our second to last G1 show, and then Thursday, a show covering both Crown Jewel and the G1 finals as it all winds down. The other long and winding Royal Road, this one of the G1. After 19 shows, we're almost there.
Almost there towards the finish line. And on Thursday, we will be back to talk about the final as well as Crown Jewel.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. We'll chat with you later on this week. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow Davey Portman on Twitter. And call a friend that you haven't heard from in a year or two and just say hello.
Very specific things.
Yeah. I think we should be I think we should have a little more specificity.
Okay. I like it.
Anything you want to encourage people to do?
Yeah. Put your toilet paper on the racks the front facing way rather than underneath. That is the proper way of doing it.
Yeah. Don't be a crazy person.
Yeah.
Good night.